Hey, welcome back to another edition of Everything Football 62. I'm your host, John the Big Tex Johnson, aka Uncle Tex, aka Professor Tex. Uh, Doing this show is based upon obviously the passing of the great Jim Brown, probably the greatest back that ever played the game. His number speaks for itself. And we're going to let a few guys do the talking. I'm going to go throughout some of the things that happened during his time and what he actually meant to me and what he meant to a game and whatnot. So without no more delaying, we're gonna start right here.
Two. This is a picture of Jim Brown, and I treasure that very much, but I treasure the words even more. Bert, a friend over 25 years, you have remained a man, and a man of his word. And that's rare. Your friend, wherever you are, Jim.
Yeah, this is from 2010, top 100 of all time. This is why I always say there's no greatest of all time. There's no GOAT as long as time is still, going on. And show you right there what he was about. And Burt Reynolds talking about him.
Faster than a speeding bullet. More powerful than a locomotive. Able to leap tall buildings in a single bound. The pro game in the pop age had a number of superstars, but only one Superman, and he was Jim Brown.
Jim thought on Sundays, and these are his words, that he was a god. That nobody could hurt him, nobody could touch him, nobody was better. And he proved it every Sunday. He always shocked everybody.
One of my favorite ones, look at that. Nobody touched him on a trap play.
And then you tack on
Nobody
to that
touched him.
225 pounds and mean, tough runner.
In 9 record-setting seasons, Jim Brown led the league in rushing 8 times. Brown was a 3-time MVP. He is the only runner ever to average over 100 yards per game.
Now let that sink in. Over 100 yards rushing a game. Only back after, 59 years of retiring.
And over 5 yards per carry for a career.
That so-called macho, which I hate that word, but he embodies it.
I played 9 seasons, I never missed a game, and I never laid out on the football field. I might not have the greatest ability of everybody, but the one thing that stands is that when it was time to play, I was there.
4 missed tackles. Anyone knew that.
He was the NFL's all-time leading rusher and touchdown king when he retired. With an NFL championship and nothing more to accomplish, Brown walked away when he was just 29.
When I quit, I was happy. I had 9 good years. I did all the things I wanted to do. I went into movies. I started talking to pretty girls. Oh, I've never looked back.
Brown and Reynolds first met when they were co-stars in the 1969 Western 100 Rifles.
There was a scene where we had to fight each other. So I fought him on a cliff, about 75 feet down to the first rock, and then he got me dangling there. He said, I'm really getting kind of sick of this height. I said, really? Well, screw you. If we fall, it's going to say Jim Brown, an unknown actor, die. For me, a lot of people want to talk about other actors. Nobody wants to talk to Jim Brown about other football players. They want to talk about Jim Brown. I think even people that never even saw him play. You say Jim Brown, and they sort of whisper, "Did you see him? Did you know him?" He was everything I hoped he would be, and a hell of a lot more.
Now, let's put this in perspective on what Jim Brown did. In 1951, the all-time leading rusher of a league that was only 22 years old, it was the great Steve Van Buren of the Philadelphia Eagles, known as the King. He finished with 5,860 yards. That was the all-time leading rusher of the league. Right? He did that in 8 years. Finished up at age 31. 6,400 and 5,860 yards and whatnot. Jim Brown, by the age of 25, which is the fifth year in his career, was 6,463 yards. This was in 5 years. By the time he did it, the league was 32 years old. 10 years after that of Van Buren, which was, I think, in 1961. Retired at age 29 with 12,312 yards and 106 touchdowns. After 58 years, he's still ranked 11th. And he's been holding it 11 for quite some time. If we go to that of, and it took 19 years to finally break his record. Walter Payton did that in 1984, which was Payton's almost 9th or 10th year. That shows you the impact that he had on the game at that particular time. It's amazing. He was a man amongst boys. He did so much for the game and did so much for that because you had the civil rights movement that was going on and whatnot at that time. Not only that, Jim Brown was one of the first, had the first interracial sex scenes in the movies in 1969, a movie called 100 Rifles. That's why he met Burt Reynolds. If we go down, and it's funny because in a documentary that Spike Lee did back in, I think, 2002, where Raquel Welch, who just passed a few months ago, who was considered one of the baddest chicks in the game at that time as a white woman, said that, as far as like his acting, as far as you have to be a little feminine, but Jim could never be that way. That's why he could never become that of a great actor, because he was going to defy that type of behavior and whatnot. We go down, him and Muhammad Ali here. We look at the great time when Muhammad Ali went against the draft and everything, and Jim Brown spoke up against it. You see a young Lou Alcindor, which is Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, and Bill Russell, who passed back in July of last year. Jim Brown meant a lot to the African American community. Jim Brown did things dealing with gangs, and that's something that you can't get away from. I've seen different articles who try to dismiss him, say, yeah, he was a great back, but he threw some woman off the cliff. He threw some woman, off of a hotel balcony. He did this, he did that, he did a few things. Flawed human being like most men are. Now, I told somebody that on, I believe, on Twitter. As men, we're all flawed. As human beings, we're all flawed. Black, white, green, yellow, whatever color you want to come through with. So it doesn't really matter about what he did at that particular time. It's just that Jim Brown and his dominance in the game of football, is something that we speak about. That's why it's everything football. I don't really get off into guys' personal lives and whatnot and what they did. They're married to women. They got girlfriends, or whatever the case may be. And he may have done this and he may have done that. Different time, different era, and whatnot. But you have to put your hats off to that of great Jim Brown and what he did, and whatnot. Even if you think about it, he does that interracial scene with Raquel Welch. Where was Sidney Poitier? Where was Harry Belafonte? Where was a lot of these different actors? Paul Robeson. Where was a lot of them guys at? They used him as the one to break the mold of that, because he basically looked the part, because he was the part. And it's really no getting around. It's really no getting around it and whatnot. You can tell by the picture right here. So his legacy will live on for a long period of time, as far as off the field exploits and what he did as an actor and whatnot, and also what he did as an activist. And he was not going to be denied. You wasn't going to tell him what to do, what he could do. He was a man's man. And I've oftentimes said, who are some of the people that you look up to? I've oftentimes said that, obviously my father, Jim Brown, those are the types of guys that I look up to. Even James Evans, even though he's a fictional character in Good Times, James Evans, played by John Amos and whatnot, of what a man is supposed to be and how he does certain things. And Jim Brown was definitely that guy and whatnot. And so when people try to act as if try to bring shame amongst his name, just bring up some of the white players and what they did, or that you don't know that they did, that doesn't come out in the press, and what they did and how they did and how they treated their women, how they treated women in general. So I don't really want to hear anything about throwing women off the balcony, going upside their heads, and all this other kind of things. They didn't even do that with Deacon Jones. And Deacon Jones told you, he said, about the hair stuff, you tend to go upside a woman's head, tend to go upside a man's head or a woman's head, they tend to blink. And they end up cutting that out as years went on. That's the original Crunch Course tape. So, a different era, different time. But judge that man for what he did in his time going on, and stop trying to still use that type of thing against him in his when he's laid to rest. And so, hats off to Jim Brown. Great player, great activist, great humanitarian. And we need to get off of this stuff about bringing that stuff up when somebody dies and everything. Because Jim Brown was a gem for humanity and for that of being a man, especially nowadays in this crazy world where masculinity is oftentimes questioned. Like I tell you guys all the time, there is no GOAT, there's no greatest of all time, long time still going on. And numbers don't lie and get emotional. His numbers don't lie. His numbers don't lie. After 58 years, he's still ranked 11th. 58 years, you're talking about almost 60 years. 6 decades. He's still ranked 11th in rushing yards. You guys have a good one.